There's a virus spreading across America. It harms the 1 in 5 Americans affected by mental health conditions. It shames them into silence. It prevents them from seeking help. And in some cases, it takes lives. What virus am I talking about? Stigma. Stigma against people with mental health conditions. But there's good news. Stigma is 100% curable. Compassion, empathy, and understanding are the antidote. Your voice can spread the cure. Together, we can end the stigma surrounding mental health once and for all. Before I get into this presentation, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I have 3 siblings, all sisters, and I'm the youngest. Their names are Shelby. She is 25. Her birthday was just 2 days ago. She's 26 now, never mind. She has 2 kids and is married. Then there's Jenna. She is a senior at UNK and she's majoring in exercise science. And then there's Bailey, who just graduated and will also be attending UNK. I have 2 parents who are happily married. I'm involved in basketball, baseball, one-act play production, speech, National Honor Society, S.P.E.A.K, and FCCLA. I get good grades, I have a lot of friends, and I have a good relationship with my family. I enjoy working out, watching Netflix, and of course, eating. Now, raise your hands if you think that's a good life. Well, it is now, but it wasn't before. Before I tell you why, let me ask you a few questions. How many of you would say that you experience minimal stress? Yeah, no. Okay, 1 or 2. How many of you would say you experience moderate stress? And how many of you would say you experience a lot of stress? Yeah, me too. My life wasn't good because I was stressed and I had major depression and severe anxiety. Today, I'm going to tell you my story of my struggles battling depression and anxiety, and then how we can work together to end the stigma. Let's travel back to November 2017. At this time, I'd already battled depression and anxiety for over a year, and I thought I was stable and on the road to recovery. But I was wrong. I started to feel very anxious again. Everything I did throughout the day brought on a feeling of fear or panic. I had anxiety when I talked to people. It didn't matter who it was, family, friends, or strangers. The medicine I was on at this time did make me less anxious to talk to people, so I opened up my mouth more and gave them my opinion, which is how it should be. But when I got done talking to them, I thought of everything that I could have said differently. I blamed myself and hated when I talked because I thought everything I said was stupid. Therefore, I stopped taking my medicine and I didn't tell my mom. After a few weeks of being off my medicine, I would get so scared that I was going to say something wrong that I didn't say anything at all. I thought to myself, I can't say anything wrong if I didn't say anything at all. Because of my quietness, my friends started to drift away from me. They would talk to each other, but not to me, and they would make plans without me. At least, that's what I believed at the time. This hurt me so much that I became depressed, and I thought that if my own friends don't like me, why would anybody else? I thought everyone hated me and didn't want to be around me, so I started to cut myself. Every day I would go to weights in the morning, then to school, then to practice, and home, where I'd go straight to my room and stare at the wall, just thinking of everything that I said or did wrong throughout the day. This went on for weeks. Fortunately, I had friends who never left my side. Yes, I felt that I was alone and that everybody hated me, but that wasn't true. which I didn't realize until I was recovered. My friends still talked to me and made plans, but I'm the one who made excuses as to why I couldn't hang out. They supported me through everything. I would ask them why everybody hated me or why nobody wanted to be around me, and they reassured me every day that I was wanted and that I had friends. My anxiety and depression controlled me. I did everything that they wanted. For example, I would go out of my way to avoid walking past the same person more than once because I didn't know if it was acceptable to say hey for a second time. I would give people one-word answers to the questions they had to avoid the conversation lasting any longer than it had to be. I couldn't order food for myself at restaurants. I never answered my phone. I didn't hang out with friends. I hated school dances that my mom forced me to go to because it was part of the high school experience. I did anything and everything to avoid having to be put into social situations. February 14th, the night before I was admitted to the psychiatric ward. My mom, my friend, and I were on our way to the girls' district final basketball game. Before the game, we stopped at Runza. Everything was going perfect until I dip my fry into the ranch, I bring it to my mouth, and oh no, a drop of ranch drips on my pants. End of the world, right? No, not at all, but I thought it was. I was so embarrassed. I didn't talk for the rest of the night. At the game, I looked at the ground the whole time. I didn't see one play happen. On the way home from the game, I still didn't talk. We dropped off my friend at his house and I instantly started crying. Now some of you might be thinking, really? Crying over a drop of ranch? But that's not what it was about. For months and months, I kept everything inside until I just blew up. My mom asked me what was wrong, and I said nothing. She said, "You're literally crying, Connor. What is wrong?" I kept insisting that nothing was wrong until we got home. I tried to leave the car as quickly as I could to avoid having to talk to her, but she locked me in the car. Little did I know, she knew something serious was wrong. I found out that night that about a month before this, a friend told a teacher at school that I was feeling suicidal, and that teacher told my mom. My mom didn't think anything of it at first because I looked and acted like the happiest person in the world. My mom asked me a lot of questions that night, but the one I remember most was when she asked me if I had attempted suicide before. I was crying so hard at this point that I couldn't even answer her. I just shook my head. Yes. Then she asked me if I could make it through the night without hurting myself. I promised her I wouldn't do anything. I broke that promise. Later that night, when everyone was sleeping, I snuck into the kitchen, opened up the medicine cupboard, and swallowed a bunch of pills. I went back to my room and immediately began to regret my decision. I woke up my mom and she rushed me to the local hospital where I had a charcoal drink to reduce the effects of the medicine. I was then transferred to Good Samaritan Hospital in Kearney. Once I was stable there, I was admitted to the psychiatric ward. While I was in the psych ward, I got started on new medicine, I saw the psychiatrist every other day, and I went to group activities. At these group activities, I learned coping skills, positive affirmations, grounding techniques, and triggers, which taught me how to manage my anxiety and depression. I was in the psych ward for 5 days. After I was released, I started cognitive behavioral therapy, hypnotherapy, and continued on my medication. Now don't think when I was released it was all butterflies and rainbows. I was still depressed and anxious, but my life wasn't in danger anymore. I knew deep down that I didn't want to die. Did you know that it takes 6 weeks to see if your medication is going to work? The medication I was on at the time ended up not working, but we kept on it just in case it would start working by the 6-week point. While I was on this medication, my depression and anxiety did get better, but I started to have panic attacks. They were usually at night when I was thinking of everything that I did wrong throughout the day, but sometimes they were during the day or even in public. If you don't know, panic attacks suck. It makes you feel as if you're literally going to die. You can't breathe, you can't stop shaking, you can't stop crying, and your heart feels as if it's going to literally explode. At first, I had no idea how to manage my panic attacks. They would last for over an hour, and they would happen every single day. Over time, I learned how to prevent them by going to therapy. My therapist taught me techniques to stop a panic attack and how to prevent one from even happening in the first place by recognizing my triggers and then avoiding the triggers. It took me half a year to learn how to not have a panic attack and a full year for recovery. But for some, it's much, much longer. What helped me most was having an amazing support system made up of family, friends, and medical professionals who never gave up on me. And no matter what, they believed me when I told them that something was wrong. Recovering is hard the way it is, but it's even more difficult when you have to face stigma. Many people face stigma when battling mental illness. Stigma is when someone, or even yourself, views a person in a negative way just because they have a mental health condition. Some people describe stigma as a feeling of shame or judgment from someone else. Navigating life with a mental health condition can be tough, and the isolation, blame, and secrecy that is often encouraged by stigma can create huge challenges to reaching out, getting needed support, and living well. Learning how to avoid and address stigma is important for all of us, especially when you realize stigma's effects. Because of stigma, people experiencing mental health conditions often face rejection, bullying, and discrimination. This can make their journey to recovery longer, more difficult, and in some situations, impossible. Because of stigma, mental health conditions are the leading cause of disability across the United States. Because of stigma, less than half of the adults in the US who need services and treatment get the help they need. Because of stigma, the average delay between the onset of symptoms and intervention is 8 to 10 years. Because of stigma, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death for all Americans and the second leading cause of death of youth ages 15 to 24. Stigma shames people into silence. It prevents them from seeking help, and in some cases, it takes lives. Now I'm going to address 3 common misconceptions about mental health and tell you why they're not valid. Number 1, it's just a phase. In reality, half of all mental health disorders show their first signs before a person turns 14 years old, and 3/4 of mental health disorders begin before the age of 24. Unfortunately, less than 20% of children and adolescents with diagnosable mental health problems receive the treatment they need. Early mental health support can help a child before problems interfere with other developmental needs. Number 2, mental illness is a lifelong problem that lasts forever. Yes, not all mental health problems are curable. Schizophrenia, for example, doesn't go away. But almost every mental health problems are treatable. The National Alliance on Mental Illness reports that between 70 and 90% of individuals experience symptom relief with a combination of medicine and therapy. Complete recovery from a variety of mental health issues is often possible. In my case, I still have anxiety, but it's barely noticeable, and it isn't controlling my life anymore. Finally, number 3, the stigma I hate the most because it's not even close to true. Mental illness is a sign of weakness. In my opinion, people battling mental illnesses are the strongest people I know. Many people with mental health issues are incredibly mentally strong, especially after going through therapy, where they learn how to cope and discover strategies to overcome their mental illness. Mental illness is not anyone's fault, any more than heart disease or diabetes is a person's fault. Mental illness is not a condition that people choose to have or not to have. No one should have to feel ashamed of a mental health condition any more than any other medical condition. If you are interested in ending the stigma, you should do this right now. Stop stigmatizing people who are battling mental illness and spread the truth about mental health to anyone and everyone. Share pictures on social media platforms with the hashtag #EndTheStigma and tag me at endthestigma.speaker. If you would like to keep up to date with what I'm doing, please follow my Facebook page at @EndTheStigma. If you want to take an even further step, visit the website nostigmas.org. They have volunteer opportunities, mental health awareness events, free materials to help end the stigma, and so much more. If we work together, we can end the stigma surrounding mental health. All it takes is educated people, and that is what I've done for you today. When you leave this room, I challenge you to take home with you what I've told you today and share it with your coworkers, your family, your friends, and your community. Once we work together to spread the truth about mental illness, we can finally end the stigma. Thank you everyone for coming today, and thank you Mrs. Wadier for reaching out to me and supporting me through this journey. I love every opportunity I have to share my story and to inform others and let them know that they aren't alone. So thank you very much.